Welcome back to video number 2. There is a lot going on here. My goodness, let's jump in and cover it all, shall we? Let's go. We're going to start with Andrew and that special A Very Royal Scandal that was released Thursday on Amazon Prime. And one of the recreations, it's a 3-part series, shows Andrew at Beatrice's wedding. And we know the official photos only showed the newlyweds. And there's one photo that shows Elizabeth and Philip over to the side. But in the show, Beatrice is posing with her husband outside the royal chapel, and Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, or their actors, pose next to their daughter. And then apparently in the reenactment, Beatrice asked Andrew to step aside for this next one. We're just going to take an official portrait. And apparently Andrew mumbled, absolutely. We don't know if that actually happened, but if it did, that's kind of harsh. Talking about that 3-part series, some of Andrew's and Sarah's friends came out and they used the Queen's phrase, recollections may vary. Apparently, Andrew and Sarah are really not happy over their portrayal in the show. Andrew is portrayed as a sinister character and Sarah is a thin-skinned lush. That's what's being said. They're claiming there hasn't been fair representation of what really happened and that they're very disappointed, Andrew and Sarah are, by the entire family's portrayal in the series. Even the woman who did the interview that essentially ruined Andrew, that Emily Maitlis, I think is how you say it, she revealed the quote-unquote sick question that she got from Andrew right before the interview. Apparently in the show, there's a scene where this woman, who of course is portrayed by somebody else, reveals that right before Andrew agreed to the terms of his interview with BBC, he asked her whether she'd ever been abused. Now, if he actually said that to her, I can understand why he asked. He wanted to make sure her judgment wasn't clouded or colored. He wanted her to be fair. I don't think that that's a sick question at all. I think that's a fair question. So with all of this going on, Rebecca English said that Andrew comes across as I'm quoting, the most obnoxious individual you would ever have the misfortune to meet. A lot of people, they think Andrew's impervious, to public perception, that it has to be affecting him. And as a result of this, the royal family are really concerned about Andrew's state of mind because he's constantly being raked over the coals. That show is a representation. It's not 100% correct, okay? Nobody really knows what went on behind the scenes, so I would take anything you watch here with a grain of salt. Let's move on now to Zara Tindall. She has been competing at an event in Blenheim. She's been riding her gorgeous horse Classicals Eurostar at the horse trials. FYI, just in case you don't know, Zara just launched her own collection of raincoats. She said that her mom, Princess Anne, taught her the importance of, quote, good quality clothing. We also know that Zara is often named the most fashionable royal. Her coats range from 350 to 450 pounds. And the collection is named Odyssey. Love it. All right, let's move on. Next up, King Charles on September 20th, this past Friday, went to a meeting where he heard testimonies, I guess you would call them, from 2 young men on how his charity helped reshape their lives because, initially they were caught up in violence. And that's one of the things that King Charles's charity is all about. So he was at Dumfries House, which happens to be where the King's Foundation charity is based. Also with him was Sir Clive Alderton, his private secretary, Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, and the discussion also took place with the Scottish Violence Reduction Unit. One of the young men, what he said, and I'm going to quote him, it was really sad. He said, I thought when I went to the Trust for Support, they were going to turn me away. I really didn't see my life going anywhere. I had no aspirations. I didn't think I was going to be able to go to university. I didn't think I was smart enough. But the Trust really supported me and gave me opportunities in employment. The King's Trust says it believes in every young person and they should all have the chance to succeed no matter what's going on in the past. And so with the help of the charity, this young man is now at university studying social work and he's employed. So I think that's a fabulous legacy that the king is leaving behind. When the meeting was over, King Charles went outside. There was a primary school there that had been doing outdoor learning sessions on the King's estate. So he went out to, spend some time with them and their teachers. The more and more I see the King, I'm just more and more impressed. I mean, he's doing all of this in the middle of his chemo treatments for cancer. Obviously, something's been listed because otherwise he wouldn't be around all these people, chance of infection. All right, let's move on. Next up, we have the Duke of Gloucester, who went to visit the King Richard III Visitor Center. For those of you who don't know, the King Richard Society, the Duke of Gloucester is the patron, and the Visitor Center is located in Leicestershire. He was greeted by a lot of people, lots of local dignitaries, including the Lord Mayor. And I think what's really cool is that they showed King Richard's facial reconstruction. They showed, I believe the Glaston area is the area where his body was found. When he was finished there, the Duke of Gloucester went to visit the Bosworth Battlefield Heritage Center, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Next up, Princess Anne on the 16th went to visit the Fleet Air Arm Museum. She met some staff and she met some volunteers, and she got to see firsthand there's a project trying to save the world's only Second World War Barracuda from extinction. Now, the museum is, by the way, also in its 60th year. We're going to stick with Princess Anne. She went to Peterborough Farm. For those of you who don't know, she is the patron of the Beef Shorthorn Cattle Society, and she was there to present the National Herd Competition Trophy. There was about 150 people there, they said. She also met guests at 4 different workshops that covered everything from soil and pasture management, performance recording, classifications. They also discussed climate change, carbon audits of the ground, and adaptation and mitigation. This took place on the farm, who have the farm owners won the last 2 years in a row. So this year, they were judges for the contest, and the trophy went to a breed from a Yorkshire farm. The winner this year, the National Herd 2024 winners, were Jeff and Chris Ryby. Congratulations to them. That's pretty cool. Now we're going to move on and we're going to stick with Anne, sort of. Do you guys remember back in August when Princess Anne and her husband, Sir Tim, attended the salute, the show at the Edinburgh Castle? You guys remember that? Well, this one person on Twitter, her name is Amy, happened to spot up in the audience as Princess Anne and Sir Tim were arriving. There she is. That's Lady Louise in her military uniform. How cool is that? Amy has excellent observational skills, because I watched that video and I did not spot Louise in the crowd, but there she is. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to Sophie. Remember, her tour continues. She was in Tanzania, and now she was looking at a disease called elephantiasis, I think is how you pronounce it. It's a mosquito-transmitted disease. So Sophie went with the staff. Apparently, they go door to door for medical administration for what's needed to combat this disease. That's pretty cool. Sophie got to watch the 12th billionth, I'm not misspeaking, the 12th billionth donation of the treatment. One of the members of parliament, her name is Nima, I hope I'm saying this right, Lugangira, actually put up a post on Twitter saying wonderful things about Sophie, but we already know how wonderful she is. And finally, we're talking about Queen Camilla. There's some talk that she could open up a TikTok account to talk about books, thereby being an influencer of books. We know that she's got the Reading Room charity, and there's been some increased reading because of Camilla. And so they think that she might be a good fit for a social media influencer for books. And for those of you who don't know, she already launched a podcast called The Queen's Reading Room in January. And that podcast is among the top 1% in the world. Royal fans are really listening in as Queen Camilla talks and interviews different guests. According to the article, Camilla's podcast is heard in 171 countries and reaches approximately 12 million people. So with all of that said, they're saying if she really wanted to launch a TikTok, it would be to engage, obviously, a younger audience who use that app. I do believe that the majority of people that use TikTok are younger people. Well, good for Camilla. Good for her. All right, you guys, you know what to do. Hit the like and the subscribe button. Go down into the description box where you'll find the links to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, my Patreon, which is currently paused, my Amazon wish list, and a physical address. For those of you who've donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.